Okay, so welcome back. In today's video, we're going to look at two more shapes. We're going to look at the ellipse, and we're also going to look at the circle. We're going to be using this documentation, so it's important that you always use the documentation as your reference. So drawing ellipse, let me see. First up, we're going to look at the ellipse. So an ellipse is a squashed circle, right? The reason why we're starting off with the ellipse is because the steps that we take to draw an ellipse are similar to the steps that we took when we were drawing our rectangles. And so you need some kind of a surface, you need a color, and you need a rect object. And so like we did with the rectangles, you can break these into two steps, or you could just combine these two steps. But I recommend that you break them into two steps because it's going to help you when you want to do animation and stuff like that. All right, so back to our code. I'm going to run this and show you where we left off. So we had this rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out this line here so that we don't see that rectangle. So I'm going to comment this out. This line, this is the line where we're drawing the rectangle. So like I said, when you're drawing an ellipse, you need to create a rect object. And so why are we creating a rect object? Let me show you. I'm going to open Paint. So you need to create a rect object, something like this. This is going to be the one that holds the coordinates to your ellipse. This is more like it. This is why we need some kind of a bounding box, and then that bounding box is going to be used as a guideline to draw your ellipse shape. And so that's it. And so to draw that, we need to create a rect object. I'm going to name this ellipse 1, and to draw a rect object we use Pygame.rect, capitalized R. And it takes in similar arguments as this one. We need to pass in the distance from the left and then the distance from the top. This is where the bounding box is going to start. So the top left corner. So I'm going to put it at 100, 100 like that. And then we need to pass in the width and the height. And so the bounding box is going to be, let me say 150 by 80. So this is the width and this is the height. All right, so having done this, you can go back to the documentation. Now we have this rect, right? We have this, we called this ellipse 1. So we do have a surface, we do have a color, and we do have a rect. Okay, so these are the required arguments. Of course, we can pass in an optional argument, which is the width, which is going to determine whether your shape is going to be a solid shape or is going to be a stroke shape. Okay, so having this, we can come down here, or we can say Pygame.draw.ellipse. We need to call the ellipse method or the ellipse function, which is over here in the documentation. So you need to rely on your documentation. So in here, we need to pass in the surface. Our surface is called game screen. We need to pass in the color. So we can use a tuple. These are normal parentheses like this, or we can use square brackets like this, and then we can pass in our RGB values. Let me give this a blue color. So RGB 0,0,255. This is going to be a blue color. And then we also need to pass in the rect object. And so this is our rect object. We named it ellipse 1. So let me call ellipse 1 here. So having done this, if I save and run, you will see a blue ellipse on your screen. This is the blue ellipse. Let me pass in that optional argument, which is going to be the width. If I pass in 2, it means now it's not going to be a solid shape. It's going to be a stroke shape. So that's what we have. And you can increase this to 5 and let me close this. So you need to close this and then run again. You can see what we do have. And so this is what we have. You can play around with these values and you're going to change the look of your shape. So this leads us to the next shape that we're going to be looking at today. This is the circle. So the circle, you don't need to create a rect object. So what you need is, you just need to draw the circle. You call this function pygame.draw.circle. So you're going to pass in the surface, the color, the center, and the radius. So we need the center and the radius. Those are the required arguments. So you're going to pass in 4 required arguments. The center is going to be a tuple or a list. So it's going to be a tuple of coordinates. So it's going to be 2 values, x and y, or a list of x and y values. And the radius is going to determine the size of the circle. And so we can come back here. I'm going to comment this line out so that we don't get confused. And so let me save this and run this. And we have nothing on the screen now because I commented all these lines. And so we want to draw a circle. So for the circle, we don't need a 2-step process. We just do it once. Okay, so we're going to say pygame.draw.circle. So we got a circle function there. The circle function takes in the surface, which is the game screen. It also takes in a color, which can be a list or a tuple. So let me pass in a list. Let's say 255,0,0. It's going to be a red color. It's going to take in the center. The center can be a list or a tuple. So I'm going to pass in a list. We need an x and a y value. This is going to be the center of the circle. So given our window here, we can see where we want to draw our circle. Maybe we want to draw it somewhere here. So our window, how big is our window? 480 by 640. So we can say 224, which is almost in the middle. I'm not pushing it right in the middle, but and then 300, for the y value. And then separated by a comma, we need to pass in the radius, how big the circle is going to be. Let's put it at 50. Okay, so having done this, we can save and run this. And so you can see we have a red circle right here. It's almost in the middle of our window. All right, so this is how you draw a circle. You can pass in an optional argument, which is going to be the width. Yeah, so if I pass in 3, this is going to be, let me save this. So this is going to be a stroke circle. Instead of being a solid circle, it's going to be a stroke circle. You can also pass in other arguments. For instance, you could say, I just want the top left or the top right or the bottom left or the bottom right. And so you have to pass in a series of Boolean values. So let me take you back to the documentation because it's going to be the guide. Yeah, you can draw top right. It's going to take in a Boolean. Bool is short for Boolean. So it's going to be a true or false. The default value is none. Let me see from here. Yeah, so it's none, 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 none. So the first value is going to be top right. The second value top left, and then bottom left, and then bottom right. Okay, by passing in a true here, we are saying we want to draw the top right of this circle. So if I save this and run, you can see we have a top right arc of the circle. If I want to draw the top left, I also have to pass in another true here. Now I'm saying let's draw the top right and the top left. And so if I save and let me close this and run this one more time, you can see now I have something like a semicircle, right? These are 2 arcs that I specified here. If I want 3, then I need to pass in another true here and save and run. You can see now I have almost a full circle, but some missing part. There is a missing part here, and so these are these optional arguments. But I'm going to do away with these optional arguments up to here. All of these are optional arguments, and so if I run this, you can see our full circle. If we increase this number to 100, this is the radius. You see the size is going to change. So let me do away with this. Yeah, so now we have a bigger circle. So this is how you play around with these circles. Yeah, so the documentation should be your reference for drawing all these shapes. And so for today, I think we're done. In our next tutorial, we're going to look at other shapes. All right, so I want to thank you for your time. I hope to see you in our next tutorial. Bye bye.